The Campbell Group has teamed up with PI Perspectives to offer listeners top-notch, affordable insurance solutions. Private investigators can get insurance for their business for as low as $305 per year. Apply now at piperspectivesinsurance.com and receive a quote back within 24 hours. Specializing in the research of liability for personal injury claims, Pacific Liability Research offers insurance assessments of all applicable liability coverages to help determine what a case is potentially worth. Have a case with no insurance policy? Since 2019, the highly trained staff on their insurance discovery team has located over 100 million plus in previously unknown insurance coverage. They offer a full refund for any inaccurate results, and they do not charge for no-hit searches. Additionally, Investigators Toolbox members automatically receive 50% off their first case. Just mention Investigators Toolbox when you fill out your first order. More information can be found at pacificliability.com. Contact them today and discover the immediate impact that Pacific Liability Research can provide. Do you enjoy our podcast and the guests we bring you? Since 2019, Matt and his team have done their very best to give you amazing shows each week. If you feel like our show has helped you to be a better investigator, or maybe even inspired you to become an investigator, please let us know. We're looking for testimonials. Drop Matt an email with a recorded 20 to 30 seconds of you talking about this podcast. You can also email him something verbal about the website. His email is matthews@satellitepi.com. And if you really feel blessed for having this content, consider supporting Matt and our show by joining Investigators Toolbox. You really have to see version 2.0. And at just 49 cents a day, it's a no-brainer. Now let's jump in to this week's episode. Welcome to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. Today we welcome Colorado PI Ryan Johnston. Ryan has been in business for about 40 years and has a great perspective on the industry. The guys cover several topics including surveillance, state associations, and licensing. Let's jump in and join Ryan Johnston and your host, private investigator Matt Spare.
And welcome everyone to this week's edition of PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spare, your host. Today we visit Colorado, and longtime private investigator Ryan Johnston is our guest. Ryan, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for having me, Matt. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So great to have you on. You know, this is the first time we're actually interacting face to face. I know we've traded emails over the years. Colorado is just such a great state association, not large, but man, the people that are a part of it really, really have a passion for this industry. Tell me a little bit about your background, how you got into the business.
I've been doing investigations for about 40 years now. Actually, I'm on my 40th year, and I started working collection agencies as a teenager and got interested in the investigations end of that business, and eventually actually took a one-day course from a private investigator that was coming through town. Said, so you want to be a private detective? And I took that course, and it kind of piqued my interest. And I talked to my brother about it, who was a bartender in Denver at the time. And I said, I'd really like to get into this profession. And he says, well, as luck would have it, there's a private investigator that comes into my bar all the time. And I can introduce you to him. And he did. And it turns out it's Bob Helis, who I'm sure a lot of people know. Sure. He's the ED of World Association of Detectives. Mm-hmm. And Bob offered me a one-time gig of 1 week to go help another investigator. And that case actually fell through before we ever did it. And a couple months later, he called me and said, how would you like to work full-time? I said, absolutely. And Bob's company was surveillance-oriented. And that's what I learned from the beginning.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know who Bob Helis is, Google him. I mean, he's a legend, such a great guy. I love Bob. I've actually chatted with him about coming on to the show. I was like, well, why have we waited so long to have you on? I've been doing this since the end of 2019. And, the dude's always traveling. He's always going to some country scouting for WAD. In fact, right now, I think he's in Chicago. He's in the U.S., the Centennial for WAD in 2025 is going to be in Chicago, which is like the first meeting WAD ever had was in Chicago. So it's kind of neat.
Nice.
Yeah, he's on a fact-finding mission. I know he had a fact-finding mission in France in the French Riviera last year. So he gets to travel. He's a good dude.
He was always that way when we were working for him too. He was always traveling to different countries and whatnot. I think at the time, well, I know at the time he was a member of WAD. He wasn't in the position he is now, but he was always traveling.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges when you started surveillance? I mean, you're pretty much going in cold, right? Someone's training you how to do it. And then obviously technology, I would guess, right? So what were some of the challenges when you first started doing it?
Definitely technology. I was trained by Bob's right-hand man, John Karubas, and I still keep in touch with both of them. And he trained me for 3 days on surveillance, and then here's a case on your own and go out and do it. It's go buy a van at that time and go follow somebody around. And, the biggest challenge at the time was you didn't have any communications with the office, or so you couldn't get any guidance or anything like that. This is pre-cell phones. We're talking 1984 here.
The pager.
So the pager, if they have an emergency, they can page me, but then it's, well, can I make time to get to a payphone someplace?
Yeah.
So that was definitely a challenge. You just kind of learn on your own, after 3 days of training, but they did a great job, and I enjoyed it. So I went in gung ho.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's crazy when you think about technology back then, like how big the cameras were, and like I did a bit of that stuff in the late '90s, and I remember putting a camera over my shoulder and driving through Manhattan, like, yeah, this isn't conspicuous at all, right? Nobody's gonna pick me out.
I've got a story about that. It's actually up on our website that I followed. This was back in the day when you had to carry the VCR and hook the camera into the VCR and carry the camera. I followed somebody up snow skiing one time, up the lift with this camera and this VCR, and followed them down the slopes snow skiing. So it's
making a documentary. Come on, everybody does
that. Yeah. It's a Warren Miller film.
There you go. Totally, like, it's not standing out or drawing attention at all.
Yeah, you look at where we've come nowadays and all the hidden cameras we have. It's amazing, and thankfully for all the hidden cameras we do have.
Yeah, it definitely makes it a lot easier. I mean, I can remember when the technology started to change a little bit, right? You started getting your button cameras and your pen cameras, and it's starting to get smaller and smaller, but the quality was terrible. And was the button facing the up in the angle? It's like, great, you have a great shot of the sky. Like, who cares? Knows what's going on, and you could never check it, right? You never knew if the angle was off or anything like that. Now it's all Bluetooth to your phone. Okay, yeah, it looks good. It's at the angle of the key fob, one of the best inventions ever. Great surveillance tool, right? We didn't have all that stuff.
Like you said, back then you go back to the office and just pray when you put that video in. You pray that it came out good. I actually did an article for Pursuit Mag, pursuitmag.com, about technology from 1984 to present. Yeah. I think I did that about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's just amazing. Be thankful for what we have now.
Sure. Yeah. How's another guy that I'd like to do a show with? We've contacted each other. We kind of played back and forth, but we never have scheduled anything yet. I respect the heck out of Hal Humphreys. He's a great criminal investigator, and Pursuit's it's a great product that they have out there. So
absolutely,
yeah. Along the way, you've been doing this long enough. I don't quite have 40 years in there, but I'm making my way. So it's good. I'm sure you've seen a thing or two. What was one of the more unusual things that you've seen in your time?
Oh, we've seen a lot of things. We had an insurance company one time ask us to go locate a vehicle. Now this wasn't really high stress or anything like that, but they said the claimant said that the vehicle crashed into a mine shaft up in the mountains outside of Denver, near Bailey, Colorado, someplace. Go find it. That's all we had to go on. Wow. And we actually found the vehicle. It was in a mine shaft, not like you'd usually visualize, horizontal. It was a vertical mine shaft, and they dropped it into there. I don't know how the people got out of the car and climbed out, but we found the vehicle in the mine shaft. And then to identify it, had somebody lower me down into the mine shaft so I could take a picture of the VIN and then prove that to the insurance carrier. Yes, this is their vehicle and it is there.
So where did you get the VIN number? Off the door, the windshield?
The windshield. Went down to the front of it and took it off of the windshield. It was one of those things. And my biggest fear was, at the time, I just bought a brand new $1,000 Sony camera. And I was like, don't drop it into the mine shaft. Please don't.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, we've had some interesting ones.
Absolutely crazy. I mean, yeah, we've all got stories. I mean, what always fascinates me too is the difference between doing surveillance in like a major metropolitan area and then doing surveillance out in rural, which that I don't know how that gets done because you stick out like a sore thumb. I remember we were asked to do surveillance outside of New York for a company in a Hasidic community. So like they wanted our guys to like go and survey this guy that had a truck. He was not supposed to be bringing a truck out there and whatever. And I'm like, this is literally like out in the country, and none of my guys look Jewish, so I don't know how we're gonna pull this one off. And it was definitely a challenge for sure.
Rural ones are always difficult. I usually tell the client we'd like to start with 2 investigators so we can kind of cover exits if we can, to the best of our ability and see when they leave. If they're not leaving, then you have to move in a little closer and see what's going on. But you're right, you stick out like a sore thumb. And, quite truthfully, I've always thought about where you're from, New York City. How in the world do surveillance investigators do any surveillance in downtown New York?
Yeah. I mean, you have to do 2. It's got to be a team. And you got to have somebody on foot and somebody in a car, because you just never know when someone's going to, up on a bus, go down in a subway. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of oopsies. We got to grab them again. I remember I had one, I've told the story before, but typically don't do surveillance on the plaintiff side. But this one was a plaintiff job where we had a Chinese food delivery guy who ran over a model and like shattered her bones in her face, and she could never be a model again. And they were looking for insurance coverage. They knew who the guy was, but they didn't know who he worked for. So we were supposed to pick him up at home and then follow him to work and find find where he's working. Right. So we pick him up at home and positively identified, teams following him. And then he goes over a bridge, but he's got one of these motorized scooter things, right? An electric bike or whatever. And he goes into the bike lane from the regular car lane. And my guys are in cars, right? So whoops, we lost him, right?
Yep.
So next time we're out there surveilling, same thing, guys going over the bridge again, but this time we had a guy on a bike on the other side. So sure enough, our guy went in the lane. We picked him up and followed him to the Chinese food store. And amazingly enough, the restaurant had $1 million liability policy. So my client was ecstatic because they thought like it was just going to be a $25K case and nothing further. And we were able to actually get the full value of the case. So that's one of my victory stories on surveillance. Again, we don't do too much of them, but it was a funny story and it kind of worked out. So,
yeah, a lot of those you have to put in a day to kind of see what's going to happen. And then when the unusual happens, adjust like you did. I remember having one up at University of Colorado. The person lived in an apartment near the university. And sure enough, they jumped on a bicycle and rode onto campus. Well, I can't drive and follow them there. So the next day I put a bike in my vehicle or attached to my vehicle. And as soon as they came out, I grabbed the bike and followed them that way. So nice. Sometimes it takes a couple of days to find out the best way to do it.
Yeah. Throw in a book bag. You look like you're taking classes and stuff.
Yeah. I was much younger then too. So yeah, I would blend in a little more.
I'm sure. So I know it's not a huge state, and I know it borders, many different states. What do you do in cases with surveillance when your subject decides to visit another state while you're underway of doing investigative work?
Well, Wyoming is not licensed. So the only place in Wyoming that is licensed is the city of Cheyenne, and we do have a Cheyenne license. We also have a Utah license if we go there. Mm-hmm. We don't have New Mexico, and I actually ran across that once where I was in a southern city in Colorado, and the people took off and were driving for a couple hours, and they hit the New Mexico border. at that point, you have to shut it down, because if you get any evidence in New Mexico, it's going to be tossed out, because you obtained it illegally. And I was thankful that I did, because I actually had this person under surveillance for 20 straight days, went in and testified in a deposition, and the attorney in that deposition was the most difficult one I've ever come up against, without a doubt, hands down. And she was just trying to tear me a new one for this or that, and I frustrated her because I had every answer for her. But had I gone into New Mexico, then she would have picked up on, we're doing something illegal. So my feeling is, if you're not licensed in another state, if you see that coming, like somebody's heading towards Kansas, make some phone calls real quick to associates, but the chance of them getting to the border that quick is probably slim to none.
Yeah. I think what really sets the bar on that, doing the pre-surveillance, right? Understanding that it could be an option, could be a problem, and maybe trying to line it up beforehand. We have that issue with New York and New Jersey, right? There's no reciprocal agreements on that, and that's a whole nother show in itself. We've covered that topic before. What do you do on situations like that? I always like to err on the side of caution, right? There's nothing worse than losing your credibility on the stand, because those are minutes. I mean, those are, it's depositions. It's there. It's memorialized. It's forever. Here, you did something you weren't supposed to do, and if someone's trying to discredit you or something like that, it could be an issue, or is it something they're going to enforce the law and you'll get fined? Not really. I don't really see as the state associations hammering down on that, but you brought up a good point. That key evidence, that, the smoking gun, you can't get it introduced. It's garbage.
Yeah. You may be able to get it introduced, but a sharp attorney will say right away that was obtained illegally because you're not licensed there, and then they'll have to throw it out.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than the jury should disregard, right? Hearing that is
absolutely
not good at all. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to focus in a little more on Colorado. You got an amazing award recently, so I want to talk about that too. You've also agreed to come back and serve on a board again, which in Colorado, which is amazing. And we'll talk about that too. So everybody sit tight and we'll be right back.
I want to talk to everybody today about ScopeNow.com. ScopeNow has been a big-time sponsor of this program for quite some time, and I just love their service. I've been using them since the beginning. I'm one of their beta customers, and it's been so awesome to see them grow into the business that they are today, and just how they just keep reinventing themselves and pushing themselves to get more and more information. What it comes down to is ScopeNow is a tool that you definitely need to use if you do social media investigations, any internet research, and really spending less time digging around and looking for information. I think is one of the best points of how ScopeNow can help you. Their AI platform, their analytics are amazing. You really get an idea of what you need. You're reducing the time, you're reducing the manpower that you're spending on doing this research, because they're essentially doing it for you, and they're doing it correctly, which is most important. One of the new things that they're actually offering is this flagging system where you can flag behaviors and really highlight and look out for fraud. If you're doing a lot of fraud research, this is a fantastic tool, and you can set up alerts. So you have particular people that you're looking at, you can actually set up alerts to get notifications when the criteria that you set up is actually is flagged and goes off. It's really, really amazing. And their relationship and association analytics are top notch, really cutting edge and really, really cool. When they brought that out on version 3, it was a game changer. I mean, really being able to see how people interact together and having that relationship, analysis is really, really something that's cool. One of the other things about being involved with ScopeNow is their ability to offer webinars. Their team is cutting edge on putting together and getting out really, really great content. If you're a member of ScopeNow, if you know who they are, you've seen them around on LinkedIn, you'll know that they're constantly doing webinars on these new websites that are coming out, and they're really staying on top of it. And don't forget, any reports that you generate, you can actually white label those reports and put your own logos on and really make them look professional, which could equate to more billing for you as well. So check them out today. It's www.scopenow.com. They're a great, great company. They should be one of the tools in your toolbox, along with whatever kind of search engines you do. You need to make sure that ScopeNow is a part of that suite. scopenow.com.
Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. The NALI Midwinter Conference is live and registration is open. This year, the event will be January 31st through February 2nd at the Serrata Beach Resort in St. Petersburg, Florida. Learn more at nalionline.org. That's NALI online.org.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is Matt Sperry, your host. Today, I'm very happy to have a guest from Colorado, Ryan Johnston. Ryan is with the Colorado Private Investigation Company. That's a perfect name, very descriptive of where you are and what kind of work you do. So welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Matt. Good to be here.
Yeah. So a storied career, right? 40 years. And during that time, you've served the industry. You've been a part of your state association. You elevated yourself up to president, did your role, got off the board, and then came back. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, and some people that Dean Beers, I had met many, many years ago, and at an event, training event, and he mentioned PPIAC, which is the association here in Colorado that I should join. And I kind of dragged my heels on that for a while, and then met Andrea Roscoe, and she convinced me to come on and be a member. And unbeknownst to me, the very first day I was a member, they sat me on a board, and I had never been on a board in my life. Mm-hmm. It was because I was showing interest up at the state capitol on the licensing situation here in Colorado. And so they made me VP of legislation. And I got to be honest with you, Matt, I didn't know anything about politics at the time. I really was oblivious to what goes on in politics, but I always want to help people. So, I thought I'd join the board and help where I could.
Right. Yeah, no, it's definitely, you have that feeling. I mean, that's similar for me, right? So I think I started my own business 2005. I think probably by like 2007 or 2009, I came on the board of the New York State Association as a regional director. And within one term, we do 2-year terms. So within one term, I was now the secretary and kind of started my track all the way up. And why? Because I was somebody who was interested in doing things. I've elevated myself up to president. So from one president to another, good day, sir.
Well, and I'm guessing you get the same treatment at home. I try to get my better half to say, "Hey, Mr. President," at home, and she won't do it.
It was a joke. It was a joke with my kids, and yeah, for a while, that joke got stale very quickly. I'm the president of taking out the garbage. There you go.
Yeah, I joined that in 2011. Joined the membership and the board, and then 2014 became president of the association and served 2-year terms, and then said, I need a break from this for a while, if not permanently, and let somebody else. I am truly of the mindset you need to get young blood in there and new people to get new ideas. I don't want to just be the same old people all the time. I really want to see new people with new ideas.
Yeah. So how does it work in Colorado with past presidents? Are they like on the board forever or no?
No, you're just a member after you're not on the board anymore.
See, we have that in New York. Once you've served and you're on the board, you can actually come to any board meeting and you can vote. And it's challenging, man. Especially when you talk about like the fresh blood and all that, because we've had people that, they come in and they're assertive and then you get these cliques of these quote unquote old timers that, they want it done a certain way. They have an expectation a certain way. And you get to the point where, do they just want to have a dinner party or do they actually want to do things? Right. Excuse me. So that's one of the challenges that I deal with. Right. Cause I got all these young people that are like, they're hungry, they're aggressive, they want to do things. But then you have that group that's just, we just want to make it a dinner thing. We'll do it.
Right.
And your association, you guys actually do training and you do that. And which is so crazy because licenses are not required in Colorado. Yet you do all this awesome training and you have all these amazing events. So tell me a little bit about that stuff.
Yeah, we do training every month, and plus we have periodic 1 or 2 day events throughout the year. One of the courses we give is City. It's a beginner course for new members, and I'll tell you, my mindset is you can learn from anybody. I'm one of the instructors at City. I do surveillance instruction on that, and I actually had somebody in there who's a new person that just started out in surveillance, and I learned a new trick from him. And I'm open to doing that. And that's, we don't have the clicks that you're talking about in New York. Fortunately, I think our members are absolutely fantastic and we get input from them all the time. And, I'm really happy with the people we have there.
Yeah. One of the things I like to do when I do any instruction teaching, at a conference, I'm talking at a conference, I understand who I'm talking to, right? I'm speaking to guys like Ryan Johnston, right? You're 40 years in the business. I'm not teaching you anything new, really, right? But what we're doing is I like to make it a point to have discussions, right? And just solicit opinions from people in the crowd, old and new, right? Because you do get those situations where, people see things or do things just a little bit differently. And maybe, you didn't think about doing it that way. And now all of a sudden, we're having an open discussion and people are actually taking things away from it. I enjoy teaching like that because, there's so many great minds in the room. Who am I to think that I know everything about everything, right? So
I absolutely agree with you. And like I said, I'm willing to learn from anybody, whether they just started out the business and they, like you said, have an idea. Hey, what if we do this? I'm not going to shoot it down because of, they don't have much experience. I'm going to listen to them and open up to that and say, if that's a good idea, we're going to implement it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, even in my own personal career journey, as I become less of an investigator and more of as a business owner, I start losing those hard skills. So yeah, I can open a discussion. I can talk about all that stuff, but honestly, like the people that work for me are probably better to talk about the subject matter than I am. I got that 35,000 foot view. They're in the trenches doing that stuff. And people like that are the ones that are actually in the audience too on these things that are talking to you about the subject that you're talking about. Like they can definitely have some good input on that. So it's definitely it's a good. I found it to be very, very good. And I have been invited probably 4 times out to Colorado for your conferences in the yearly, and darn it, every year I have a conflict. some booking that I've already been booked for. I've been asked to speak twice, and I've had to turn it down. And it's like you see the venues too. Oh yeah, we're going to this place or that place in Colorado. And if you've ever been to Colorado before, it's just a beautiful state. And it's a bummer I haven't been able to make it, but I'm going to be there one day. I promise.
Well, you might have to do it this year since I'm president. I'll make you do it. Okay.
Oh, there you go. Well, it depends on the
I tell you, we had a conference one time up in Breckenridge, which is up at a ski area, and it was, I don't know, about 9,000 feet is the elevation. The one thing we didn't take into consideration was people coming from all over the country that aren't used to elevation. Those of us that live here, that's not a big jump.
Right.
There was a couple people that weren't feeling very well there.
Yeah. Trying to kill the competition, literally. That's fantastic. You guys roll.
Literally.
So let's come back to the issue on licensing. And we've covered this before in this program about the fact that Colorado lost its license. So you used to be able to get a private investigator's license, and then all of a sudden DORA, and which we'll talk further about in a sec, said no more licenses for everybody. We're going to be an unlicensed state, and then the quote unquote Wild West happened. So I think it's almost 2 years now. Is it 2 years?
Yeah, I think it's 2020 is when it happened. Maybe 3 years.
Oh, 3 years now. Okay, yeah. So let's talk about this again. So what's been going on in the past 3 years? How have you seen this work out?
Well, quite truthfully, our association was formed in 1977 when they killed licensing in Colorado the first time because they had no definition of a private investigator in the law. Mm-hmm. And since then, Ray Piezold, Gene Johnson, and one other formed this association. And one of their goals was to meet other private investigators in the state, but also to restore licensing. And it took a long time for us to be able to do that. 2014, we finally got the bill passed, and 2015, it went into effect. And there was licensing from then till 2020. And in Colorado, they have what is called a sunset time, where they sunset a bill and say, okay, should we continue this or should we not? Obviously, we were completely behind continuing the program, and we did. We had 75% support in the Senate, 75% support on the House side. It went to the governor's desk, and he vetoed it. And he claims there was a barrier to entry, and quite truthfully, there was very minimal barrier to entry. You had to take a jurisprudence exam on the laws that were going to be involved in getting a license, which was an open book. You had to go through a background check, and at the time, our renewal fees were $16. So minimal barrier to entry. We knew DORA, that was overseeing the program, didn't like the program. So we think there was something there between the governor and DORA that, they're going to target our program, and it was killed. So you're right. We're back to the wild, wild west. And the advantage we had with licensing here, as other states do, is, the general public can vet a person and say, yes, they're a legitimate private investigator because I see their license here in DORA. And they can also file a complaint if they need to. And now you can't do that.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging. There's no penalties. Anybody literally can say they want to do this, right? You can wake up, some guy could go sit in a bar, meet some guy who's a private investigator and say, hey, I'd like to do this, and then just go and do it without any repercussions, right? And without any training, without any oversight. I think that's a big thing, right? There's no enforcement of things. And it's interesting because I remember having this conversation with Andrea Orozco about this, and she brought up some interesting points about, even though we're not required to have licenses anymore, we're going to continue the training. We're going to continue to have the state association, because essentially what that's doing is that's giving credibility to the investigator. So like if they have to go up and testify, okay, so you're a private investigator. Isn't it true there's no licensing in the state? Yes, there's no license in the state. However, I choose to be a part of this state association, and we have continuing education, we have networking, we have a higher standard, we have a code of ethics, we have all this other stuff, right? So it gives you the opportunity to talk about all this stuff that kind of diffuses that argument. Like, hey, you don't know what you're doing. It's like, on the contrary, actually I do. Or you carry licenses in other states. Yes, I'm not licensed in Colorado, not required, but New Mexico is we're licensed there, right? So that kind of stuff, I see that done too, right?
Absolutely, and we encourage, if one of our members has to get up on the stand and testify, encourage them to say that they're a member of an association that first and foremost does a background check on them before they can become a member, right. And then, like you said, all of the training. And we also encourage members, like you said, to possibly think about getting a license in another state. Yeah. My company has a license up in Wyoming in the one city that requires it, which is Cheyenne. And then we also have a Utah license, so we can say we're licensed investigators. We're not licensed through Colorado. And that was the other argument we made after the fact to the governor is, you don't want the dollars going to Colorado. You want our dollars going to Utah,
I don't even understand why that was an issue. I'm sure there's a very long political lobbyist answer to that question or some sort of deal. We'll never know. But hey, nothing's permanent. Somebody's in office until they're not in office. This is why there's term limits, and it's not King George saying never again. So
yeah, and quite truthfully, our legislative committee with our association is still meeting with representatives. As soon as a couple of weeks ago, we met with one, and a month ago we met with another, just to say, these are concerns right now as privacy issues and that type of thing, that you may limit our access, say, for instance, a DMV or something like that. Yeah. These are really concerning to us, and these are the reasons that we need to keep that open. But long term, we're going to be considering licensing again, and we're continuing to meet with our state representatives all the time.
Yeah. One of the things that always amazed me is the quality of investigator that comes out of Colorado. Just for some reason, like you look back at the who's who in the industry, it's Colorado. You're looking at the Orozcos, you're looking at the Beers, Karen and Dean, like they lead the way in, death investigations, right? The forensic, they have a whole school and doing it. Google them too, please, folks. If you don't know who they are, they got a lot of really good products out there. I think is Ellis Armstead. I think he's from Colorado.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like then heavy hitters, and then you got some Johnston guy, some hack who's just been around for like 40 years, so
that nobody knows about. Yeah, Dean says it all the time. He says it's the little association with the big impact, and I have to agree with that. That we try to do as much as we can with who we have.
Yeah, it's just good people. And people, like, they always ask me about, hey, should I go to this event? Oh man, there's not going to be a lot of people there. I'm like, maybe there won't be a lot of people there, but the people that will be there are people you're going to want to associate with, you're going to learn from, and you'll walk away a better investigator, learning something and context. That's the whole reason why you go to these conferences, right? You don't
absolutely.
If you got 400 people in the room, but 375 of them are kind of a waste of time for you, what's the point? If you've got 50 or 60 people in a room, but these are people that are going to help you get better at what you do. And if you go to a very beautiful state and you get to hang out, and apparently you don't have enough oxygen, you can pass out as well.
Well, and it's like I've seen you discuss on your previous shows. You connect with people that can help you on investigations, or you can refer investigations to. Dean Beers, that's a death investigator. I've referred cases to him all the time, that we get a call for something. That's not my specialty. I'm a surveillance investigator. I've been a surveillance investigator for 40 years. I will stay in my lane with that, and I will refer any other type of investigation to members in our association that specialize in that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. It's always better to know the person than be the person. That's, I've said that many times. That's a Jim Nanos quote there, another surveillance guy. But that's how you succeed in this business. We can't do everything. Every phone call you get, you're not going to be able to do everything they want you to do. But, if you can put it in the right hands of the right person, everybody wins. It's
very true. And then they'll always remember that we've had reviews on Google that said, thank you for the great referral, and that's what it's about, is knowing the people that can take the client and make their case what they need.
You got to tell Dean to stop putting those reviews up there. It's got to be legit.
I will.
That's all good stuff. Hey man, I think we're going to wind down here. This was great. Definitely a long time coming. And again, congratulations on was it Lifetime Membership Award for the Colorado?
Lifetime Membership Award. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you on being president in a very large state.
It's a big state. We'll leave it at that. It's a huge honor, actually. And anytime you make that sacrifice, all joking aside, and you've decided to do it twice, actually. People don't realize the commitment that it takes to be on a board, and if your intentions are to actually serve, there's work to be put in, and you're really only as good as the people around you as well. So it's important to have a board that supports you and helps basically try and get things done. And there are a lot of really, really good people in Colorado. So you deciding to come back on and do another round, I'm not completely surprised by that, because you got really good support staff there.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I've told our incoming board is I'm really looking forward to this, that because of the people that I know that are going to be on the board, just amazing people, and they're hard workers. That's the biggest thing. They're hard workers. Too many times you see a board that, there's just a couple people that'll do the things. We're coming into a board where everybody has been in that position, so everybody will collaborate to do hard work.
Yeah, it's even there, and even your predecessor was another guy, John Morris, another guy who just committed to the industry and just getting content out there, and and I think he was like mayor of a town or something, in addition to doing whatever he had to do, which is great and bizarre and very weird. But sometimes our body betrays us, and that was the situation for him, right? He had to step down, and another just solid guy from, of all places, Colorado. So.
Absolutely. He's the PI guy. And I told the board, I said, he was always my answer man when I was president before, and he was treasurer. He was always my answer man. I'd turn to him and say, what do you think about this or that? And John is just a great guy.
Yeah. Good people. So Ryan, if folks want to get a hold of you, how do they find you?
DenverCPI.com is our website. It's as in Denver, Colorado Private Investigations. So DenverCPI.com. They can email us, and this will tell you how long I've been around. We have an AOL email address, ColoradoPI@AOL.com.
I'm not judging you, man. I still have my AOL address. I can't shut it down. It's a problem. I should. I don't really use it anymore. Everything just forwards over to other stuff. But it's like people know me. It's Satellite Matt, right? Yep. The AOL address. Like I still get, and I constantly, like every time I get one, I got to send that email back. Please start using this email address, not that one. I keep telling I'm going to shut it down, but I never do. I don't know if I ever will. And they're charging like $17 a month now too for it, which is bizarre, but whatever.
That's where people know us, right? For years and years. So
afraid to shut it down. I know it's terrible. Yeah. So, all right, we digressing here. Ryan, thank you again so much. Congratulations. And thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next time on the next show. Take care.
Thanks to Ryan for jumping on and discussing his amazing career. Also, congrats on receiving the Lifetime Membership Award from the Colorado Associations for your commitment to excellence. We also want to thank Campbell Insurance Group for sponsoring the show. Remember to tell them you listen to save $50 when you apply for insurance. Additional thanks to Scope Now, Pacific Liability Research, Satellite Investigations, and PI Institute for Education for sponsoring our podcast. And don't forget about investigatorstoolbox.com. You can type in version 2.0 25% to save $50 when you join. If you have a question or a comment about the show, email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We'd like your feedback to bring you the best shows possible. We'll be back next week with a new one, so make sure you tune in and stay safe out there.